On this edition of the Bucs Report, we talk about Todd Bowles. We talk about his clock management. We talk about timeouts. Does this guy really know what he's doing at the head coaching position? Then later in the show, we will talk about Tom Brady and how it seems like all season he's been out of sync with Mike Evans. Is now the right time to start missing practices? Then later in the show, we will talk about the fluid situation of AntonioBrown and the domestic assault situation going on there. We'll talk about all of that and more next on this edition of the Bucs Report. Let's go! Well, hello and welcome into this edition of the Bucs Report podcast. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms. You can find this podcast on the Bucs Report. Check it out online at bucsreport.com. You can find this podcast on YouTube. Just search for the Bucs Report. And of course, you can find this podcast wherever you find your audio podcasts. My name is Dan Holmi. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Bucs Report. So in this edition of the Bucs Report podcast, we are happy to have AJ from the Bucs Report. AJ, welcome to the show.
How you doing? Thank you for having me, and happy Friday to you.
Thanks for joining us. So just taking a look at this Bucs team, it is a team that, everyone kind of pegged to be, the NFC South winner, and they are at this point, but they're doing it primarily because the teams around them are playing that poor. The Bucs 5-6 are in first place. After that, the Falcons 5-7. So just taking a look at this Bucs team, what is your outlook for them going on the rest of the season here? I know that they are taking on the Saints next on Monday Night Football. What is your outlook going forward here?
The outlook that I'm looking for is belief and accountability. I've said this on previous Bucs Reports with one of my co-hosts, Slick, on the Aftermath, which you guys should check out. We always do it right after the games, Mondays. If the game is on a Sunday, so it'll be Tuesday this week. But yes, this team right now, we're a bad team, Dan. That's just no better way to explain it. But we're not a bad team because we're the players. The coaching staff has failed this unit because they have not yet to bring out the best of their players, and there's no accountability on their part. The Todd Bowles interview was terrible. I see him taking no accountability, and he should take notes from a Jeff Saturday. It's okay to say, I made a mistake. It's my fault. But until then, the coaching is what's hurting this team, and there's too much other things that is keeping us from being successful. This team is a Super Bowl caliber team. They just don't have a Super Bowl caliber coaching staff.
Yeah, and I mean, a little bit later in the show, we'll talk about that clock mismanagement. We'll talk about why Tom Brady on fourth down was going to go for it, and they said, well, he was scared that it was going to turn into an interception. Did he forget who is the quarterback of this team? So being 5-6 and leading a division is a testament to two things: leaning heavily on the defense to win games and the good fortune of playing in a poor division. NFC South teams are 11-22 games outside their division, and only the AFC South 10-21 is the worst this season. It's very possible the division procedure championship and doesn't have a winning record, something that's happened only 5 other times in 20 seasons since the current 8 division alignment started in 2002. So you could say that this Bucs team, of course, is playing well. They're in the top of the NFC South because the rest of the teams around them are not playing well. A lot will change on Monday if the Buccaneers fall to this Saints team, which, let's face it, over the year has given this team fits. What is your outlook for the Saints game coming up here? We take a look at it. Some familiar faces. Jameis Winston will most not likely not be the starting QB. Dalton starting at QB. Winston says losing his job due to injury hurts his soul.
Mhm.
This is a Bucs team that has struggled against the Saints, and now they have to do it without Tristan Wirfs,
Yeah.
Ryan Jensen, and Donovan Smith, who has not really been dialed in. So, color me skeptical, but when I look at this team going into playing against the Saints, a team that has given them trouble for so many years, I am a bit concerned as they take them on. What are your thoughts about just, there's the myriad of injuries on this team. You add Tristan Wirfs to that now.
Yeah.
What's your outlook for the Saints?
The outlook is that the Bucks coach staff again is going to have to go into the arsenal and let Brady fly. This is the problem. The main issue that they do against the Saints, particularly, they play into their strength. You cannot establish a run. They're too good for that. This line is not meant for the run right now because we don't have all of our pieces. So this is where you get creative. Get the short crossing routes going. You need to pass to set up the run first. You have mismatches all over the place. You know they're going to double Evans, so now you get your other receivers involved. You have to find a way to be creative. This is why the Bucs have fits with the Saints, because the Saints know us so well, but at the same time, Byron and Bowles are so predictable on offense, so it keeps the defense, the Saints defense, all they know they have to do is just pin their ears back and get at the Bucs. And the Bucs offense needs to create and establish a rhythm and establish it with the pass first. So that's what they got to do. They have to think outside of the box. And again, you have to put more faith in your offense than their defense. I don't care who they are. Cam Jordan is not the same Cam Jordan anymore. And if you want to help him out, get a running back to chip him. So they have to take advantage that way. Set up the pass should set up the run, not the other way around.
So, I mean, like I talked about off the top here, this is a Bucs team that he has seen Tom Brady and Mike Evans not really dialed in all this season. For whatever reason, it just seems that they're not on the same wavelength. Tom Brady took a Veterans Day off today. He also said in a video, he said Tom Brady asked for more one-on-ones on practice to increase the competitive reps and improve confidence with his receivers.
Mm-hmm.
It began again about 3 weeks ago. He explains why it is so important. And then there was a video there. With that being said, and so much being on the line, does this really seem like the right time for Tom Brady to be taking a Veterans Day off?
I actually have no problem with it. I think a lot of people think that Brady is the problem, but again, for people out there who don't watch the game fully, football is not the NBA, ladies and gentlemen. It takes a team to be successful, and again, the coaching staff is a part of that team. I can tell you exactly why Evans and Brady are now on chemistry. That is because how the way Evans has been utilized. If you look at it,
Right.
for the most part, they use Evans more to draw penalties, which I feel is very asinine to his talent. And because of that, the offense can never get in a rhythm. Again, it's like they take these little mid-range routes and that's it, and they're not utilizing the talents. Instead of Evans said it, he was only using a go route. Where was Scotty Miller for that?
Right.
He has the speed to do that, which will make the corner and the safety have to honor that, and that's where Evans can feast. Again, we have all these receivers where if you double somebody, you can use someone else. Again, go back to the game in Seattle. Julio Jones scored a touchdown on a crossing route. We need to get that more involved. So until then, that's why they don't have the rhythm. It's not Brady's fault. It's the coaching staff, because it's their job to say, okay, this is what we see that's not working. So how about we change it like this? This is with all these weapons. Byron should be having fun coming up with all kind of designs. And again, he's not doing that. And let's just face it, folks, he doesn't have what it takes. I'm hoping that he does soul searching and Bruce Arians gives him some guidance. But at this time, it's going to take the coaches to get out of their egos and allow the players to, they need to allow them to play to their strengths, not their schemes or egos.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the biggest thing here. Like you were talking about, is utilizing the players the right way. The funny thing is it's Byron Leftwich and it's Todd Bowles, both of whom were coaches under Bruce Arians during the Super Bowl winning season. But to my how things have changed, it makes you wonder what will happen in the offseason. All right, so after the break here, we will talk about where is the future of Tom Brady. Will he be on the Buccaneers? Will he be playing in the NFL at all? We'll talk about that next. All right, welcome back into this edition of the Bucs Report podcast. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. In this edition, we are joined by AJ of the Bucs Report as well. So in this next segment here, we're going to talk about Tom Brady. There's a lot of talk about there that he's going to go back to his home and play for the 49ers. I've heard some talk out there that he wants one last hurrah with the Patriots. Tell me your thoughts on Brady. Where do you see him going at the end of this season? I was listening to James Yarko on the Locked On Bucs podcast, and he had mentioned that, there's a possibility he could come back to the Buccaneers. Color me skeptical with that. I really don't think that is going to be the case. I do think if he comes back, it's not going to be with the Buccaneers. I know he's got that deal in place to be a broadcaster when this is all said and done. But now that he doesn't have that pressure of Giselle telling him to retire, we often heard about that internal pressure. That's why he retired in the first place. Now it's apparent what that internal pressure was. Where do you see Tom Brady next season?
I'm going to tell you what, this season will determine it. If he sees that there is promise, that there's going to be potential improvement and progress for next season, I think he'll come back because he has his best shot is still in Tampa. And this is why. You still have Mike Evans. You have Chris Godwin, who will be 100% next season. You will have Jensen back next season, and that's a big critical piece. You will have Wirfs coming back. So the line will be a lot in better condition. And again, the defense is still very good. I don't think he'll go back to New England just because in my personal opinion, him and Belichick are still not on that level yet where they can do that. San Fran is ideal. However, I'm not sure about San Fran yet because a lot of their players they're injury prone. And the thing is, it's receiving core and all that in the backfield. So the Bucs are still his best shot. It's just up to the coaching. Now I'm telling you, can you imagine, let's say if we go on a run in the Bucs, and I'm speaking this in existence, especially if the Bucs win a Super Bowl, he will definitely be back. Because again, all those pieces I just mentioned, can you imagine Jensen back fully healthy, Wirfs fully healthy, the receiving core fully healthy, the defense, and then we'll most likely draft a lineman or another edge rusher, Shaq Barrett coming back. Why would you leave something? And you have a repertoire with the Buccaneers. You want to go to another team and start all over again. It's not guaranteed he's going to strike lightning like he did the first year with the Bucs. So the GOAT is staying. He'll be right back.
I really do hope you're right. I mean, there's a lot of people saying a lot of different things. I guess ultimately at the end of the day, it's up to Tom Brady. But, say for some reason he moves on or the Bucs cut ties with him, highly unlikely, but say it happens. There is no clear heir apparent on the Bucs. You take a look at Gabbert. There's Trask, who has been redshirted his entire career here. Yeah. Where do the Bucs go in the event that Tom Brady doesn't come back? It's my belief that they'll probably try to go out and draft someone, or perhaps, in the free agency, try to sign someone, because, a lot of people, we need to kind of rewind time a little bit and think to last offseason when this Bucs team and the fan base was up in arms when Tom Brady was retired. What are we going to do? This team was linked with every possible quarterback out there, from Aaron Rodgers to Watson to all these different players. So in the odd event, what do you think the Bucs will do? Do you think they're going to draft someone, or will they seek the free agent market?
Man, I'll tell you this. This is where the Bucs where I talk. I would love to talk to Jason Light, because if you don't believe in Trask, why would you draft him? Yeah. Why would you? That's a waste, and it's a wash, because you're not guaranteed to get a strike gold in the draft this year if that happens. If God forbid Brady leaves, so at this point, you might as well, if you're gonna gamble, I would see what Trask is all about. For all we know, Trask could be that gold gem that can come out of nowhere. Tampa has had a history of fouling up quarterbacks. We can go back to Doug Williams, Steve Young. You have two guys that leave, and so this is where the Bucs just got to roll the dice, because we still have a solid team. And imagine if Trask can be average, this is still a 10-win team next year with all the people coming back from injuries. So I would roll the dice with Trask if you can't find anything.
Yeah, and the thing of it is it's kind of hard to assess what talent he has. If I remember right, when he was playing in the preseason, he was getting better and better as time goes on.
Yes,
But if you're a backup quarterback in any capacity, you have pretty much one game to prove your worth. Otherwise, you're useless.
yes,
Because it's an odd situation. There's backup goalies and they at least get some work, but there's often times where backup quarterbacks never see any game time. So it kind of puts them in a tough position. So I do agree with your assessment that Trask is at least a worthwhile look, to see what they have in him before they go draft yet another quarterback, because then you kind of get into that position where you're constantly drafting people and never utilizing them. For me, I don't think that Gabbert is the right guy. I think he's a backup QB for a reason, but I don't think that he is going to be the right person for the job. So, kind of just taking a look at other things Brady related, he does have some, a true magnetism to him. A lot of players came to this Bucs team
yes,
because he was the QB. He is the GOAT. He is the greatest of all time.
yes,
Just taking a look at this lineup, you talk about Jensen earlier there. He had even spoke of possibly seeking greener pastures, but then all of a sudden Brady was coming back. He's like, oh, maybe I will stay here. How
yes.
many players do you think, or is there any players in particular that you can think of that will leave if Brady leaves? Because, there's going to be a lot of uncertainty surrounding this team in the event that he does leave.
Yes. I would say Julio will be gone. Maybe Jensen. If that happens, that would be a big blow to our line. This is why I think it's imperative that the Bucks really succeed. Honestly, anything under an NFC title this season, you can kiss Brady goodbye unless he does some serious. Hey, we'll be definitely back next season. The, the Bucks are in prime position. The NFC is wide open. As you said, despite us looking terrible, there is no quarterback when playoffs comes in NFC that I'm standing behind the GOAT. I'm not scared of Kirk Cousins. I'm not scared of Dak Prescott. I'm not scared of the NFC East or Geno Smith or Jimmy Garoppolo. So again, it's the opportunity is still there. It's again coaches. A lot of people don't realize this is what these guys are paid for. You can't just say, well, the players can change everything, because if that's the case, then there's no need for coaches. So it's really up to Bowles. Bowles is going to have to man up in accountability. If he knows the offense isn't his strength, he needs to say, okay, let Byron handle it or talk to Arians, get somebody down here, and his main focus should be on the defense. It's okay to understand your strengths and weaknesses. So yeah, if I hope that they don't leave, but you're right. Jensen will be gone and Julio will be gone. Big time. I know those two definitely.
Because that's one of the biggest things about this Bucks team, and it's true throughout all of sports, is there are so many injuries on this team.
Yes.
It's really hard to know what their identity is. Who is this team with Shaq Barrett back? Who are they with Wirfs and Jensen, and just this laundry list of other players
Yes.
that have been lost. The interesting thing in the offseason was that everyone looked at this Bucks team and thought they were stacked. They picked up Gage and Jones, and oh my God, they have depth. They're going to be tripping over each other.
Mhm.
But then the Ryan Jensen thing kind of started the whole thing in motion.
Yes.
And then that was the first time that I was like, uh-oh, this changed everything. And you kind of take a look at Tom Brady. He relies so heavily, as all quarterbacks, but he has this certain regimen that he has for his centers where they're using the baby powder and the towels and all this kind of stuff. That I
Mhm.
think that was the hardest for Brady, was to lose Ryan Jensen. So it will be interesting to see, who this team is by the end of the season. We listened to Tristan Wirfs, who has that high ankle sprain, which is going to be out. I want to say they said like 3 weeks, but
Yes.
3 weeks is kind of pushing it out a long way. So then another big person of impact that I haven't mentioned yet is Antoine Winfield, a junior, a true unsung player on this team. I know who he is, who he is, but around the NFL, everyone should know the great impact of Antoine Winfield Jr. on this team. And in his absence, that's the thing. You just add all those up in a calculator and you look at them and you're like, dang, that is why they're not playing that well.
Yes.
It's, that plus coaching, which we'll get to in the next segment here. All right. So after the break here, we will talk about the clock mismanagement of this Bucs team. We will talk about why did they not have faith in Tom Brady. They were scared of an interception. Are you kidding me? We'll talk about that next. All right, welcome back into this edition of the Bucs Report. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. In this episode, we are joined by AJ of the Bucs Report. In this next segment here, this was the big story. This was all over the place. All of the different Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan pages and just all over the place. You looked at Rick Stroud and everyone was carving Todd Bowles up about what the clock mismanagement. And the part that worried me the most is that Rick Stroud was on him hard. He didn't have a real good answer for anything. He's like, oh, the clock running out? Well, that clock was going to run out anyway. What kind of answer is that anyway? So one of the things why they were talking about with Tom Brady not going for it is one of the things that Bowles said was that he was worried that Tom Brady would get picked off. Only 2 picks from Brady and 470 passes is incredible. The Cleveland Browns scored a game-tying touchdown with 32 seconds left in regulation, then earned the 23-17 win over Brady's Tampa Bay Buccaneers in overtime. It marked the first time in the quarterback's career in which his team held a 7-point lead in the final minute of the fourth quarter and lost the game. Per Elias Sports, Brady has been 218-0 in such situations, including the postseason. Are they absolutely nuts by not having Tom Brady, trusting Tom Brady? I mean, there's got to be some kind of ineptness in Todd Bowles' brain. I think that he just didn't know how to handle the situation. What were your thoughts on that whole crazy situation?
Absolutely. This is, and I've coached before, and I've been under these certain pressures. This is where you have to have confidence in your players. You have Brady the GOAT, and he mismanaged the clock. The simple fact that he said that, and in a way, Bowles almost told a bold-faced lie, because if that was the case, if you didn't want him to throw picks, why did you have him out there throwing the ball with even 30 seconds on the clock? Why wouldn't you just kneel it and get ready for overtime? So again, he messed up and he doesn't want to own it. And that is what makes him a suspect as a coach, because it goes back to his Jets days. Again, you blew it. You should have called the timeout. You have the GOAT right there. I would like to remind people, he scored a touchdown against the Rams with 40-something seconds and no timeouts. So you mean to tell me the GOAT can't do it again against a suspect defense? And again, the play calling was just atrocious. You didn't utilize anything. Again, there should have been Otten or somebody going up the seam and a middle pass. So again, that was Bowles just not having, again, for me as a coach, if you do not believe in your team more than the opposing team, you don't need to be a leader. That is not how a leader of men are supposed to be. Those guys should have confidence that my coach got me. My coach believes in me. And that's why we lost this game. We essentially flattened. I'm going to tell you where the game was lost. And it wasn't there. When Amari Cooper dropped it on that 4th down, that is where the game should have been over. And the Bucs should have at least got a field goal to put the game away. So yes, Todd Bowles just didn't have it up here, but most importantly, he didn't have it here to believe in the GOAT. And that is inexcusable.
Yeah, and that was one of the things too. I was listening to the Rick Stroud podcast that he does on Sports Day Tampa Bay, and he was saying, generally in those situations, Bowles is still calling the defense. That obviously his head is in other direct, a lot of different places. That usually you would appoint a senior coach on the team to just take over the role of timeouts and clock management. That you could get in the ear and whisper and say, hey, I'd probably I'd do a timeout here, or do something like that, because it just seems like he's trying to take on too much, by calling the defense, plus, making all the other calls out there. If you look at Bruce Arians, he was a great delegator. He, and he put faith in Leftwich. He put faith in Bowles, and he kind of just stood in the middle and kind of observed and probably chimed in his input on it. So I think to a certain extent, Todd Bowles is kind of overwhelmed with the situation. I do ultimately think that unless this team does an about face and they make a big push into the playoffs, or, some crazy thing, they end up winning a Super Bowl, I do think that it is probably his last season as a head coach for the Bucs. We said if we didn't get yards on the first down, on the first play, we wouldn't call a timeout. We would probably let the clock run, Bowles said via the Pewter Report. If Brady saw something, he could throw it, but we didn't get any yards on the play. We got 1 or 2 yards with Rashad, and we were backed up. So just again, it just seemed like he was kind of just flailing and wasn't really sure what the questions were in the first place.
Mhm.
I do think to a certain extent he has gotten kind of involved over his head. You know, some guys are good assistant coaches, some guys are good head coaches or defense coaches. For me, from what I've observed, he does not seem to be cut out as of right now as a great head coach. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. A lot of guys out there are just better. It's like a everyday thing on the job. You have that guy who is good at this one thing, but then when you promote him to another level, being a being a coach is different from being a leader. Being a coach is just a title, but a leader is someone that you can believe in, and that's what Arians provided. Arians provided the energy and the bravado, like, hey, this is what we're gonna do. No risk it, no biscuit. This is what we loved. Bowles is Bowles is a man of caution, and a man of caution
Right.
in this era of football, you're going to lose more so than winning, because this is why I like offensive minded coaches, because they have more faith. He acts like that, and no disrespect to the Bucs defense now, but this isn't the 2002 defense. You're not going to always have them overwhelmingly shut out games. Now, mind you, the Bucs defense did do their job by keeping the team to 17 points. But with that being said, you are correct. Rick Stroud had every right. I'm glad that he did that. I'm proud that he went at him that way, because it's no excuse. The keys were given to you. It's like basically he was given a 67 Shelby GT Mustang, brand spanking new, and he's just running it into the ground. And now it has engine problems and the tires are messed up. It's like you messed up a beautiful car when you didn't have to, when you could have just simply kept it taken care of and kept it low maintenance. And Bowles, again, I don't know whether, and Byron is no better. Byron, again, the play callings were awful. Again, for people out there, Brady's not the problem. It's your coaching, what you put on the field, what you put out there in the playbook is going to represent and reflect the field. This is where the Shannon Sharps of the world need to wake up. The Stephen A. Smiths, all those guys out there need to understand, stop just talking for clickbait and talk real football, especially Shannon Sharp, because I have a problem with a lot of things he said about Brady. And for him, he knows better because Shannon played this game, so he knows coaching matters. He didn't get where he got without Mike Shanahan.
Right. Yeah, so to close out this show here, I think this should be talked about. I don't really like to get into the gossip and the drama and all that, but Antonio Brown, for me, a bit of a head case, but the guy can catch a football like nobody's business. So, I mean, I guess that is the true tragedy for me on this one is looking at Antonio Brown. An arrest order has been issued for former Bucs wide receiver Antonio Brown on a
Yes.
misdemeanor battery charge, according to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office records. No bond at this time. And then I've heard today that they went out to his residence and he refused. And I guess when you have that kind of clout, the police are just like, oh, okay, I guess we'll try later. Anyone else, the doors would have got knocked down.
Yes.
But taking a look at Antonio Brown, a true tragic story, if you ask me. A lot of people like to talk trash about him, but I think, if he could get his head right, and that's the big part there. I still think that he is an amazing athlete, and at the end of the day, I kind of feel sorry for Antonio Brown, the person. What are your thoughts on him?
Well, I don't know him as a person, but the way that he presents himself, I feel no pity for him. My overall assessment, I would say one word to describe him is an idiot. And I say this because he has been blessed to have opportunity after opportunity to play into the NFL, where you have guys such as myself and every other guy out there who would have loved the opportunity just to have someone look at you to play this game, and you squander it by being an idiot, throwing the same guy under the bus that got you to this team, that gave you another opportunity to play a game that you love. And not only that, you win a championship, and this is how you repay him, by your idiotic behavior. Again, I say this right now, Dan. I'm not saying that I will be the best, but let me get an opportunity to play right now. I
Yep.
will not blow it. And I mean that Tampa Bay or whoever in the NFL, I would love to play in the league right now because I know I can. I'm not saying I would be great, but it's an opportunity. And Antonio, you ruined that. I don't, it's not, it is tragic, but at the same time, that should be a lesson out there. Playing at a professional level is still a privilege, no matter what your skill is. And as you said, I think he should go to jail because something isn't right up there, but also he needs help. So I hope he gets the help he deserves. But I still, at this point, don't feel sorry for him because he needs help. But at the same time, it's his character that disgusts me. That's just me.
All right, AJ, once again, thank you for joining us on this edition of the Bucs Report podcast. Before I let you go here, why don't you tell our listeners where we can find your work, your different broadcasts that you do on the Bucs Report on YouTube? Let everyone know where we can find you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you again, Dan. And again, Bucks Report, the aftermath. We're on either Sunday nights and Mondays as well, especially because we like to discuss the Bucks. Hopefully, we can discuss a win. For me personally, you can find me on YouTube at AJ Turnup. My Twitter is @Turner_24, and then for my Instagram is flex_Luthor813.
All right, once again, thanks for joining us on this edition of the Bucs Report, and I'll talk to you again next time.
All right, thanks for having me.